Hello, I'm Cher, and this is Diary of a Pen Nerd. So, I know I'm a little bit late to the party, but on YouTube, there's been a lot of talk about fountain pen burnout and then just hobby burnout as a general discussion. And if you'll permit me, I would like to add some of my own thoughts about hobby burnout, specifically journal burnout. So, just to tell you a little bit about how I got to the place that I was, I have been keeping a journal since I was probably in first or second grade, on and off. It was never really a consistent thing for me. So I've got a couple of books here and there that have got, a handful of pages with journal entries on them, but I struggled to stick with a singular journal for long enough for it to be completely filled out. And so, and then I always felt a lot of guilt about not writing enough and not writing consistently enough. And I always wanted to fill journals up quickly. That was kind of my goal, is because I had a very romanticized view in my head of being a gazillion years old, not actually, but being really old and having all of my journals lined up on a bookshelf to see and to look back on. And I always thought that that was super cool, so that's what I wanted. And I always felt really guilty that I felt like I wasn't filling out a journal, and so I was never going to have this beautiful bookshelf full. That was my dream. Well, this is one of my first journals. This was actually, I think, from 8th grade to 10th grade or so. And I made it myself using a tutorial that I found on YouTube out of, I think it's a Dream Whip box that I made this journal out of. And I had a lot of fun in it, but it took me a really long time to fill up, and I would go a long time without writing. That's my cat bumping into my tripod because she's feeling feisty. So I really liked this journal, and I really liked writing in it, and I like how thick it got. But it took me a really long time to fill up, and I would go a long time without writing in it, and then I would feel really guilty. So I filled this up, I think, somewhere towards the end of 2021, maybe? I'm trying to find a journal entry, but I don't know that I wrote dates. Somewhere in there. And then once I filled this one up, I didn't have another journal ready to go, and so I kind of fell off. And it was a while before I picked up another journal, and again, it's where I would write maybe a handful of pages in one notebook and then fall off and forget about it. So the next journal I actually got into was a composition notebook that I wrote in, and at this point I was doing this kind of scrapbooky style of journaling, and I would really like to get back into that. But I journaled in this composition notebook for a month, and I got a decent way through it. And then I fell off. And I stopped writing in it. Well, fast forward to October of last year, and I decided I wanted to pick up a journal again. So I got out this one that I bought towards the beginning of the school year and didn't really have a purpose for. Well, I got it out and I started writing, and it was going really well for me. And then I decided I wanted to do December dailies. That's where you write a little entry every day per December dailies. I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory. But was very busy in December with Christmas and everything that was happening. And so I could not keep up with writing a journal entry every day. So what I started to do is, on a piece of paper in my bullet journal, I would write the date and then like 3 or 4 keywords of like things that had happened. And I had pages that was just these days with the keywords so that I could go through and backlog and write about things that had happened that day. And this worked really well, but it was really quite stressful in that I would have like these mass entry sessions where I would do 5 journal entries in one day and still not be caught up because I was so far behind. But I finished December dailies and I enjoyed it enough that I decided I wanted to keep going, and I got through January and February doing pretty much the exact same thing of this backlogging and whatnot. And by February, I had filled up this journal and I was elated. I was like, this took me 3 months of writing consistently, and I filled up a journal and I was so happy about it, and I felt such a great sense of accomplishment, and I wanted to get right into my next journal, which I knew was going to be this one. And then I just didn't. I tried to write, and I would get in maybe like once a week, if that, and it really wasn't working for me. And so then I was really behind, and I didn't want to be backlogging, but I felt a lot of guilt and anxiety over this like massive catch up that I was gonna have to do to get to all of the things I had missed, and I felt like, you know, a failure, that I wasn't really a journaler, etc., etc. And so I was burnt out, I think. I put too much pressure on myself in the December dailies and onward, and so by the time I got to this one, I was burnt out and I wasn't having it, and journaling felt like a chore. So now that we understand how I got to the place of journal burnout, I wanted to talk a little bit about how I am attempting to heal it. So the first thing I did is I tried to completely remove the pressure of a daily journal entry or of writing all the time, and just say, I will write when I feel like it. I will write when it suits me. I will write when it strikes my fancy, and when it doesn't, I'll stop. And so then it's not a chore. It's something that I actually want to do. And it took a really long time of me not writing at all. I actually think it was about 2 months that I didn't write a single thing. And until I was ready to pick up my pen and write a journal entry again. And then another thing that I did to help heal this journal burnout is that I stopped expecting like greatness to come from my writing, right? In my vision of my bookshelf with all of my filled up journals lined up, I could go over to these journals and open it up and find deep, thoughtful philosophies on life and death and this, that, and the other thing, and it would just be like this treasure trove of deep and insightful things. And I realized that most of the time I just wanted to write about like what I did that day, how I felt about it, what was stressful, what was good, what I was anticipating coming up in the future, you know. So what I wanted to write and what I thought I should be writing were very different. And I do still write philosophically occasionally, but it's not like my primary focus. And I'm not beating myself up if all I want to talk about is like doing the laundry, you know. That's the other thing is I thought, I needed to be talking about all of these crazy things that are going on in the world. But I really don't because um I can write about what is important to me and um important to me right now, right? I don't have to write as though I am a historian. So that was the other thing. And then the last thing that I've been doing that has been working really well is I'll start in the morning. I will write down the date at the top and I'll write maybe a paragraph or two in the morning, first thing when I get up. And then from there, maybe a little later on in the day, I'll write a little bit more. And so I'm just writing throughout the day whenever I have a moment or whenever it strikes my fancy, instead of having like a late night sit down 45-minute block and just marathoning it. Instead, I'm doing these short little bursts throughout the day, and that removes a lot of the stress. And also, when it gets to the end of the day and it's like, I have to write now, you think, it's too late, I'm tired, I just want to go to bed. But if it's like, I already have most of what I want to say written, I can just finish up with a paragraph or two, then it's a lot easier, I think. So that was another thing I did, is I started beginning my journal entry in the morning, setting it up, writing in it throughout the day as it strikes my fancy, and finishing it up at night so that it's more spread out and it's not like a sprint at the end of the day. And those three things, the removing the pressure of a daily journal entry until I felt like it, and then just writing about what I wanted to write about instead of trying to force what I thought I should be writing about, and then doing it as these short bursts throughout the day instead of all at once at the end of the day. These are all things that have been helping me heal and work towards a better relationship with my journal and a more thoughtful and less stressful experience journaling. And so that's what I've been doing. That's kind of my journal burnout timeline story, if you will. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments to hear if you've experienced anything similar and what you did to get over it, or any of your thoughts. But that's all I have for you today. Thanks for tuning in. I definitely still feel as though I am speaking out into the void. Shout out to my 7 subscribers now. You guys are all my favorites. And if you are receiving this transmission by some miracle, let me know by leaving a like. And if you want to go on this journey with me, subscribe, and I'll have the next chapter of my story out soon.